Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're finding me for the first time, welcome. My name is Lori. My last name is Tata. That's the name of my channel, Time with Tata. This channel was actually started as a little bit of a passion project. I have a main channel called Lori's Boston Found, where I talk all about my full-time job as a thrifter and reseller of used clothing. I started Time with Tata a couple years ago to have an outlet where I could talk about all of my creative passions. Mainly here, I talk about journaling and fountain pens and all of my little nerdy stationery collections. I'm in a season of my life right now where I find that I have more time to explore reading, and last summer I kind of got into reading some of the classics. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself as a reader, and then I'm going to talk about the 4 or 5 books potentially that we are all going to vote for as a community to choose my very first book club selection. I plan to do these videos once a month. That is the goal. I think in the past year I've read 8 books, which is the most I've ever read in my life. I'm not really an avid reader, but I aspire to be one, and I find a lot of motivation in talking to other people who are excited about a particular book. I love watching YouTube book reviews, and in general, I'm in my 50s and I'm just getting excited about reading really for the first time in my life. My husband has been a huge reader for as long as I've known him. He's read so many classics, but this past summer, I got into Jane Austen when I bought my Jane Austen Mont Blanc pen, and I felt like I really couldn't purchase that pen, make an investment in such a beautiful pen without reading some of Jane Austen's works. So of course I started with Pride and Prejudice, and I completely fell in love. And then I was completely enamored by Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. That was probably one of my favorite books that I've ever read. And I did a combination of listening to that on audio. I bought an illustrated version of it. I bought a couple versions of that book because I was so taken by that novel. I just loved it so much. I'm not much of a fantasy reader. I like a good romantic novel here and there, but I think that my favorite genre, I have 2. I would say that number 1 is mystery. I love a good whodunit, and I love historical fiction. For those of you who may not know, I worked at American Girl, the doll store, for 10 years. I worked in the doll hair salon. I worked in the historical department. I was a personal shopper. It was a really fun job. And I worked there when my daughter Angelina was a little girl, and I even started a book club at American Girl. And that's kind of where, believe it or not, I started to fall in love with historical fiction. Yes, even though it was a 3rd grade reading level, I found it really interesting to learn about history through fictional stories. So that is actually where my love of historical fiction came into play. Recently, I read The Lioness of Boston, which is about Isabella Stewart Gardner, and it was a fascinating book. I also love to read books that take place in New England. So I just finished this book, which I took out from the Boston Public Library. Since we moved to Boston, I did get a library card, which is phenomenal. And the Boston Public Library is just an incredible place. If you have never been, you need to go. It's amazing. I just finished this book by Thomas Ricks called Everyone Knows But You. And this was a mystery about a detective who has just had a major tragedy in his life, and he starts over. So he goes to rural Maine. He's an FBI agent, and he takes on this case where a body comes to shore off of an island in Maine. And he kind of goes into the town, which is full of secrets, to try to uncover the mystery of how this fisherman was murdered. And my son goes to college in Orono, and I just love all the references to New England and Boston. So you'll find that some of my book selections will take place in New England or the greater Boston area. I actually have a Boston-based book in this month's lineup for you to vote on, so we will talk about that. Also, I'm just trying to give you an idea of the type of books that I like, so you can decide whether or not you might want to be part of my book club based on my likes. I also read Hotel Nantucket, also a local author, Ellen Hildebrand. My daughter actually lived on Nantucket Island and worked at a club where Ellen Hildebrand belonged. I think they actually served her son or something like that. There was a buzz among all of the servers. So I read Hotel Nantucket, and it was really fun. Actually, that was in Audible. I listened to that on Audible. 2 other books that my husband and I listened to on Audible. Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, and Everyone on This Train is a Suspect. Both of those novels are by Benjamin Stevenson. That really had like Clue vibes, where there are all sorts of suspects and you're trying to guess who it is the whole time. I love those kind of books. A random book that I listened to on Audible was The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I apologize, I don't have the author right here. That was kind of an unexpected listen because I had heard about it somewhere and it was lighthearted. So even though I'm not into fantasy, I do kind of like witch stories. So that might be an exception to that rule. Oh, and this was on Kindle Unlimited. And I know this is a really popular book by Frida McFadden, The Housemaid. That was terrifying. Let me know in the comments if you read that book. So that gives you a little taste of the books that I've read in the past year or listened to, and I'm all over the place. I'll get books from the library. I am a huge thrifter, as I mentioned earlier, so I always look in the thrift stores for books, and one of our selections today, actually 2 of them, were thrifted. The number one reason why I started this book club is to have fun, and I thought it was an untraditional way to have a book club. When we meet back in 4 weeks after choosing the book, I'm going to host a live on YouTube, which is going to be the forum where we discuss our books. And I may have somebody else come into the chat with me so that we can have like a live discussion. And then we'll also have a nice little side chatter in the comments section for everybody who's watching. I think it'll just be really fun. I'm sure I'll figure out what works and what doesn't work in the live format as we move forward with book club, but I thought that would be a really fun way to come together. Also, I don't know if everybody will be interested in this, but I also will be keeping a reading journal. I plan to do videos on how I set up my reading journal and use like a simple format to document my thoughts on books. So you're welcome to follow along with that as well. That will kind of be an extension of our book club. I also thought this was a great way to bring our community together. Since I moved to Boston in December, I am surrounded by some of the most incredible bookstores. There's the Beacon Hill bookstore, which is such a classic. They have like a little place where you can have tea and lunch there. There's also Trident Books in the Back Bay, which is a total classic, and it's always packed with students from Berkeley and MIT and all sorts of people in the neighborhood, and they also have a cafe. It's multi-level, they have events, they have trivia night. Trident is awesome. There are great bookstores in Harvard Square, so many bookstores, and throughout the year, I plan on doing some videos at the different bookstores or picking up books or giving you like a day in the life. Maybe I could do a review and take you to all the bookstores in Boston. That would be a fun video. I mainly wanted to bring our community together. A lot of us who love fountain pens and journaling also love reading, and I thought this was just a fun idea. So enough talking, let's talk about the books that we are voting on. I initially wanted to offer 5 books, but Instagram only allows me to give 4 choices in polls, which is why I decided to keep it to 4. Sadly, the book that got knocked this month was one I was really excited about. It's called The Woman in the Library. My husband's reading this book right now, so I was like, you know what, I'll just put this in next month's selection. This is about a murder that happens, of course, in the Boston Public Library. This will be in our May selection. I'm not particularly great at summarizing books, so I'm just gonna read off the jacket, so I hope that doesn't bother anybody. This is a book that I just picked up, and I talked about this in one of my past thrifting videos. This is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is a 4-part series. I've heard of this book before, but when I saw it at the thrift store, I'm always looking for books that are in like pristine condition. This was $4.49 at my local Savers. And I saw it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard of this book. This looks good. And then I looked at the reviews and there were like 143,000 reviews on this book. And I think it was like a 4.3 rating. I'm big into reviews. So I was really excited about that. And then I saw that it was the first book in like a 4-part series. When I read the summary on this, it really reminded me of Only Murders in the Building, but it takes place in a retirement home. In a peaceful retirement village, 4 unlikely friends meet weekly in the Jigsaw Room to discuss unsolved crimes. Together, they call themselves the Thursday Murder Club. Then it talks about all the different characters. When a local developer is found dead, the Thursday Murder Club suddenly finds themselves in the middle of their first live case. Can our unorthodox but brilliant gang catch the killer before it's too late? In the Thursday Murder Club, Richard Osman has employed all of his considerable wit and intelligence to give us just the curl up and read novel we need right now. It is pure enjoyment, so prepare yourself for a flat out pleasure of a book. I actually started this book already and it's really great. The characters are really rich. It's humorous. So if you like a whodunit and if you like Only Murders in the Building or a great mystery, this might be the book that you will select. I think I have quite a variety of stories here. The second book that I chose, and I had to pick this book, was Back Bay by William Martin. So when we moved to the Back Bay, I was really interested in getting a book about our area, and this book came up right away. This novel follows a family over 6 generations. It says, meet the Pratt clan, driven men, determined women. Through 6 turbulent generations, they would pursue a lost Paul Revere treasure and turn a family secret into an obsession that could destroy them. From the grit and romance of old Boston to exclusive and dangerous Back Bay today, the sweeping saga paints an unforgettable portrait of a powerful dynasty beset by the forces of history and a heritage of greed, lust, murder, and betrayal. I'm so excited to read this. This is a little bit of a chunkier book. This has 436 pages and the font is pretty small. So I would say that this is the heftiest read, but it looks really interesting to me. I love following family drama as well. So 6 generations following a family in the Back Bay, I can only imagine. Boston is so rich in history, and I love that they're looking for a Paul Revere treasure. So I think it will just be so much fun to follow this Pratt family through 6 generations and see different glimpses of the Back Bay and Boston through the years. These are all such good books. That's why I need your help to pick. This book, admittedly, I know the least about because my husband picked this book up while we were shopping at the Goodwill outlet. I think we paid $1 for it. It's Mexican Gothic by Silvia Morano Garcia. The reason he picked this up is because he said that it was described as a combination of Lovecraft and Bronte. So it's like a Gothic book. We had just finished Jane Eyre shortly before he picked this up. I've never read Lovecraft. I think it's like horror, fantasy, mystery, but this sounds really good. So let me read this to you. It's Lovecraft meets the Brontes in Latin America, and after a slow burn start, Mexican Gothic gets seriously weird. This is a classic Gothic horror novel about an isolated mansion in 1950s Mexico. Right off the bat, I'm interested. After receiving a frantic letter from her newlywed cousin, Noemi heads to High Place, a distant house in the Mexican countryside. Noemi is an unlikely rescuer. She's a glamorous debutante, more suited for cocktail parties than amateur sleuthing. But she's also tough, smart, and not afraid. Not of her cousin's new English husband, a stranger who is both menacing and alluring. Not of his father, the ancient patriarch who seems fascinated by Noemi. And not even of the house itself, which begins to invade Noemi's dream with visions of blood and doom. I usually don't go for horror books, but this one grabbed me. Noemi's only ally in this inhospitable place is the family's youngest son, but he too may be hiding a dark secret. As Noemi begins to unearth stories of violence and madness, she is slowly drawn into a terrifying yet seductive world, a world that may be impossible to escape. I don't know, this one might be a little weird for me, but if you guys vote for it, I will go for it. Okay, our 4th selection is Forbidden Notebook by Alba de Cespedes. Cespedes? I'm definitely saying that wrong. Translated by Anne Goldstein. I got that part right. I was in New York City at Goods for the Study, or I think it's McNally Books and Goods for the Study, that's merged. I think it's near Rockefeller Center, the last time we were there, and this was one of the staff picks. And I have this thing when I look at bookshelves, wherever I see that there aren't many books left, I'm always like curious, like, okay, this one looks like a lot of people purchased it. And this was on the shelf, and all the other recommendations, there were stacks of books, and there were like only 1 or 2 of these books left. So my brain thought that might be a good sign. Valeria Corsati never suspected how unhappy she has become until she begins to jot down her thoughts and feelings in a little black book she keeps hidden in a closet. So she's a journaler, which I love because I journal every single day. This new secret activity leads her to scrutinize herself and her life, and she soon realizes that her individuality is being stifled by her devotion and sense of duty toward her husband, daughter, and son. As the conflicts between parents and children, husband and wife, and friends and lovers intensify, what goes on behind the facade of this family dynamic gradually comes to light, tearing the family's fragile fabric apart. A tale of self-discovery and the struggle to free ourselves from the roles imposed on us. This beautiful new translation is a vivid reminder that no matter the year or language, we must continue to fight to right and live our own stories. I think this is a book about self-discovery. It's a book about, you know, the expectations that are placed upon women. And I was really drawn to the fact that this was written in like diary style. I love that peek into somebody's thoughts. And I have found journaling to be so transformative in my own life. I call it my free therapy. For some people, they feel off if they don't exercise. By midway through the day. I'm okay with not exercising, but if I don't journal, I feel like something's off. It's just a great way to get things off my mind. And sometimes when I don't even think I'm going through anything, when I look back on my morning pages specifically, I journal in other ways too, but when I look back on my morning pages, it often really tells a story about what's going on in my life at that time. So that was definitely one of the reasons I was interested in getting the Forbidden Notebook. But now it is time for all of you to vote. I'm going to tally up votes on 3 different platforms. Please comment below which book you would like to read for our very first book club book for April. Do you want Richard Osman, The Thursday Murder Club? You don't have to write the author, you can just write the title. Do you want William Martin's Back Bay? This looks like so much fun. Or would you like to read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia? This one looks spooky. Or would you like to read The Forbidden Notebook, translated by Anne Goldstein? I'm very excited about all 4 of these books, and I would love to read any of them with you. So please comment below. You can also vote by going to the community tab on YouTube. If you're really passionate and you want to vote 3 times, I guess your vote will count 3 times, because I'm going to count all of the votes here on the YouTube comments. I'm also going to run a poll on Instagram. I'm going to do it as an actual post, so it's not in my story, so we have some time to vote. I'm also going to do the community tab on YouTube. So those are the 3 places that you can vote for this month's book. So be sure to subscribe to my channel, because I will give updates here for book club. You can also follow me on Instagram at Time with Tata. Once I tally up all the votes, I will make the announcement on YouTube and on Instagram, and everybody can start reading the book or listening to the book, however you choose. And then I will set a date for when I will have a live here on this YouTube channel to discuss the book. And then I'll tell you when I'm going to set up my reading journal, and I'll do some journal focused videos for those of you who might be interested in that. Thank you in advance to anybody who chooses to participate in my first book club. I'm really looking forward to it. My goal for 2025 was to read 25 books. I was thinking I could read 2 a month, and since that equaled 24, I just thought since it's 2025, we could round up. So that's my overarching goal for this year, and this is really going to help me achieve that. So thank you for participating in the book club vote. Be sure to head over to Instagram or vote right here in the comments, or head over to the YouTube community tab, or all of the above. Be sure to subscribe to my channel. You can turn on notifications so you know when the future video comes up where we're discussing the book. And thank you so much for being a part of all this. I really look forward to where this takes us all. All right, everybody, take care. I'll be back soon with another video, and I'm so excited to see what you all vote for.